Hi everybody. In this lecture, I will be briefly explaining Essay 2. The assignment is available in the module, and it's called Essay 2 Assignment Guide, I believe. And the guide really gives you a lot of details about the assignment, so make sure you're reading that in addition to listening to this lecture. But I just want to give you kind of an idea of what I'm asking you to do in the essay assignment, because it's a little different than essay assignment number 1. This essay assignment is actually a research paper, but you don't have to do the research yourself. Now that might sound weird, but what I'm trying to do in giving you this essay assignment is to have you write something that looks like a research paper and sounds like a research paper and has sources like a research paper would have, so that you get to practice taking a whole bunch of sources and integrating them into an essay together in such a way that you're making a unified argument. And so I'm hoping that in assigning you this essay, where you get to kind of practice using all these sources, but you don't have to actually go through the work of finding them, that you'll get more comfortable with the research paper genre and writing in that genre. And then before you write essay 3, you'll be comfortable doing this. And then when I ask you to do research on your own for essay 3, it won't be so intimidating, because when you get to at least the writing part, you'll already know how to do that. And so we're sort of isolating the skills of writing something that looks like a research paper and finding the resources that would go into that research paper. I'm asking you to do those two things separately and at different times so that it's not so overwhelming, because I realize that for a lot of you guys, you've never had to write an essay like this before, or when you've written one before, maybe the standards were different, or it's been 20 years since you did it, or whatever. Maybe you haven't had to put all of these skills together in one essay, those skills being analytical skills, research skills, and also source integration and use skills. Those are all challenging skills to master. So anyway, what I'm asking you to do is to read the essay assignment and then pick one of the essay kits in the assignment guide. And when I say kits, what I mean is there are 3 different topics you can choose, and each of those topics has one primary source. A primary source for this class and for other English classes is not a source that's more important or anything like that, and not a source that you only have one of or anything like that. A primary source is simply an original work of literature, such as a poem, story, or novel. In other classes, primary sources take different forms, but a primary source is essentially first-hand information or an original work of some kind. It could be an original study or an original data set in a different class. But in this class, what a primary source looks like is a poem or a novel or a play or a story. And then secondary sources, you'll find 3 secondary sources in each of those essay kits as well. And the secondary sources, again, are not sources that are like less important or they somehow come second, or, I mean, I guess they do come second in a way. Secondary sources simply comment on or analyze primary sources. So a journal article that analyzes a poem, that's a secondary source. Or a book that's about Hamlet, that's a secondary source. So it's anything that comments on or analyzes or is about a primary source. So what that means is, for this essay assignment, each of these kits contains one primary source that you'll be able to easily find, and there are directions on how to find it. There are links in the essay assignment. And then 3 secondary sources. Also, those are sources that you should be able to find for free and have access to. You can find them online. You can find them through our library databases, and there are directions for how to do that. So you'll take the primary source and the 3 secondary sources, and you'll kind of start at the point of already having done the research for this research essay. Does that make sense? So you don't have to go out and like pick a primary source yourself and then go do a whole bunch of research and find like 18 secondary sources and then narrow that down to 10 and then narrow that down to 5 or whatever. I'm giving you the sources. All you have to do is read them, analyze them, and then use them in an essay. And the assignment does give you more details about how to do that. In this essay assignment, I'm asking that your thesis statement, remember the main point you're making in your essay, and your minor claims, the main point each body paragraph makes, be about your primary source. So if you're picking a poem to write about, for instance, your thesis statement, your minor claims, the whole argument that you're making in your essay should be about that primary source. And then what you'll be doing is, at the body paragraph level, bringing in ideas from your secondary sources to support and develop and enhance your analysis of your primary source. So what this means really is that the analysis and the structure in this essay should look just like the analysis and the structure in essay 1. You're still analyzing a work of literature. You're still doing so in a focused way with a clear thesis statement at the end of your introduction. You're breaking your thesis statement into 3 or 4 pieces, each of which will be supported in a body paragraph. And then in doing so, you'll be supporting that thesis statement thoroughly. The one difference here is that you'll be bringing in ideas from your so-called research sources, from your secondary sources that I'll be giving you. And so what that should look like is in each body paragraph in your essay, you should be bringing in a quote from the primary source as evidence for the claim that you're making, and then a quote or a paraphrase or a summary, preferably a quote because it's easier to not plagiarize when you're quoting directly, from one or more of your secondary sources. So you'll be using those secondary sources kind of to bolster or to round out the analysis that you're already doing of your primary source. And what you can do if you're not exactly sure how this looks or how to bring all these sources in or how to actually quote them and how to actually cite them and make sure you're doing that correctly is don't forget about all that stuff I made you watch, not made you, perhaps gave you to watch. It sounds like I'm forcing you to do it. I guess in a way I am. I'm teaching the class. Don't forget about all the stuff that was presented in last week's module. Last week you had all that stuff about integrating sources and using them correctly in your writing and quoting and paraphrasing and summarizing and how to use citation correctly and how to make sure you're not plagiarizing and how to use your sources in order to support a point you're making and all of that stuff. That was in all of those sources that, in all of the videos that I presented to you last week. And then last week you also had that sample research paper to read. I'd recommend looking at that again and having that out as you're writing because that essay is a really good model for, at the paragraph level, how to integrate both primary and secondary sources into your writing and how to integrate multiple sources into your writing. Look at the way that essay quotes sources and look at the way that the essay cites sources and pay attention to the way the essay uses language. You'll notice that the essay doesn't refer to authors by their first name. The essay doesn't say like, this is a great poem or something. It just kind of analyzes in a neutral way. Pay attention to all of that stuff. That's all a good model for the genre that you're writing in. And then don't forget about those sample essays in chapters 3 through, my goodness, I've forgotten how many chapters our book has. Is it 8? Anyway, chapters 3 through the end of the book. I'm having a moment here. Don't forget about the essays in those chapters because those essays also are good. By essays, I mean analytical essays about literature. There are those essays, there are those passages in chapters 3 through 6 or 8, I believe, that say sort of like, this is a draft and we're doing some pre-writing now, and then here's a sample writing process, and then here's a sample essay, and there are notes in the margin. Do you know what I'm talking about? Go back and look at those and pay attention to the way sources are handled, pay attention to the way language is used, pay attention to the way the writers are analyzing pieces of literature, and you can kind of use that as a model as well for what you'll be doing in essay 2. One more thing I want to make clear here, all of the sources that I'm giving you in each essay kit, not in each essay kit, for whichever essay kit you choose, that's a clearer way to say it. Make sure that when you're using that essay kit, you're using all of the sources that are presented and that you're citing all of the sources. So you've got to use and cite your primary source. That's probably obvious. You've got to use and cite all 3 of the secondary sources. So read them, find ideas in them that are interesting that will go along with your analysis. Find a way to use them. I've tried to pick ones that all kind of go together. I mean, I'm picking them for a reason. I didn't just pick random ones by throwing darts at a list of sources or whatever. I tried to pick 3 for each primary source that kind of went with the same topic and that sort of like went with the perspective that is listed. Each of those essay kits has a different critical perspective. Okay, and then as far as the process goes for writing the essay and turning it in and all that stuff, that process will look the same as it did for essay 1. So for essay 1, you did some planning in the form of like a discussion or two. You'll be doing the same thing with this essay. You'll be coming up with a thesis statement and commenting on, what you might say in your essay and submitting that in a discussion and so on. That'll look the same as last time. So make sure you're reading those weekly overviews at the beginning of each week, seeing what's required as far as like pre-writing and planning goes, and then make sure you're doing that stuff on time. I'm having you do that in case you haven't figured this out, so that I can read what you're planning to say in your essay and give you feedback on it, hopefully before you turn it in, so that if I see you going in a direction that might be unhelpful or would end up earning you a bad grade or something, I can say like, whoa, pump the brakes there. Maybe we want to go in a different direction, just because, it's okay to lose a couple of points in a discussion. They're only worth a couple points, but you don't want to like lose an essay, right? Because those are worth a lot. Anyway, we'll do some essay planning, then you'll write a draft, and then you'll submit the draft for peer review. As was the case last time, you've got to submit the draft on time in order to be assigned a peer review, but then you've got to complete the peer review to actually earn the points. So you're not earning points just for submitting a draft. Submitting the draft allows you to earn points, and then it's like an entry ticket of sorts, and then completing the review of your peers' work according to the directions in the module, that's how you earn full credit. If you follow the directions and you give it your best shot, you'll earn full credit, so just do it. It's effort-based, and not everything in the class is, so it's an easy way to earn points if you just follow the directions thoroughly. And then you'll be given some time to revise. You'll write a final draft, or you'll revise your draft so that it's ready to be submitted for a grade. You submit it to me, and then I grade it. And this time, you've got some other kind of pre-writing type things thrown in to the mix this week, so make sure you're paying attention to that weekly overview and all of the assignments that you have this week, because I'm asking you to do a few different things as far as essay planning goes. So I hope this essay goes smoothly for you. I hope it ends up kind of demystifying or making the research writing process a little easier, in that you get to write a research essay, but you don't have to knock yourself out finding a bunch of sources. And then when we get to essay 3, you'll be like, I already know how to write this kind of thing. All I have to do is focus on actually finding the sources that I'm going to use. So with any luck, breaking it down into those steps will make it a little bit easy for you guys. As always, if you have questions, or if you want me to look at a draft, or you want to talk to me, I'm available in a variety of different ways. I have office hours each week. I'm available to meet on Zoom. You can email me. So I hope to talk to any of you who need help. Okay,